I realized someone had begun tracking my existence marker on the second night after I tied the red thread. Not with eyes, but through the instability of the marker itself. The thread on my wrist warmed slightly, not burning, not painful, more like metal left too long under the sun. Just enough to warn me that something was touching the boundary of my existence. I opened my eyes. The house was utterly quiet. My parents were asleep. The wall clock still ran, but its ticking was uneven, as if time itself were being stretched. Outside, in the courtyard, there were footsteps, not heavy, not light. The kind of footsteps that didn't need to touch the ground. I got up without turning on the light. Through the crack in the door, I saw a figure standing beneath the locust tree, exactly where the recorder had once stood before. But it was different. The figure was shorter. Its shoulders sloped. Its neck tilted slightly to one side, as if it wasn't used to maintaining balance in a human shape. And most importantly, it had a shadow. Outside the register, not everything casts one. Someone who had once been lost but not erased had said to me, "Anything with a shadow has fed on someone else's marker." I swallowed. This wasn't the recorder, nor was it a starving thing. This was a hunter from outside the register. It wasn't looking for people, it was looking for anchors. Its voice rasped out, dry and hoarse, like a throat that had never learned how to speak. "You just tied it." I didn't answer. The red thread grew a little warmer. A fresh anchor, easy to trace. It took one step forward. At that exact moment, the neighbor's dog let out a sharp howl, then fell silent. It wasn't dead. It had simply been shifted aside, like an object no longer prioritized for existence. I understood immediately. If it stayed here any longer, my family would be dragged into the outside, not by attack, but by being blurred. I opened the door. My father was standing right behind me. I hadn't heard him approach. "Go," he said softly. "Don't let it learn the marker of our home." I turned to look at him. This time I saw him more clearly than ever, clearer than even in the days when I was still inside the register. I bowed deeply. I didn't say goodbye, because a farewell is a form of existence confirmation that's too strong. I stepped into the courtyard. The hunter tilted its head and smiled. The smile stretched wide, but there were no teeth. "Good. You know how to pull a marker away." It turned and walked toward the dirt road leading out of the village. It didn't look back. It knew I would follow. We walked exactly 7 steps apart, far enough that our markers wouldn't touch, close enough that I wouldn't be pulled off balance. Once we crossed the village boundary, the air changed completely. Sound thinned, colors faded, as if the world itself had become only a draft. It stopped at a crossroads with no signposts. "From here," it said, "you choose. Walk alone, or let me teach you." I looked at the red thread. It had cooled, but a filament-thin strand stretched from it, pulling back toward the house behind me. If I stayed even a little longer, that strand would be noticed. I made my decision. I yanked the red thread tight and wrapped another loop around my wrist. The pain nearly knocked me unconscious, but the filament snapped. The hunter laughed. This time there was genuine interest in its voice. "Good. You're solid enough. Go alone." It stepped back. Its shadow dissolved into the sky, like ink dispersing in water. I stood alone at the crossroads. For the first time, no register, no records, no guide. Only an existence marker trembling lightly on my wrist. and a road no one had ever recorded. The road ahead had no name, not because it hadn't been named, but because no one had lasted long enough to call it one. I walked. With every step, the ground responded slowly, as if deciding whether to allow me to stand upon it. The air thinned, scents vanished, only a dry, cold sensation clung to my skin. Outside the register, the world isn't continuous. Some stretches were only a few meters long, but took ages to cross. Others shifted me into a different space with a single step. I didn't panic. I kept my breathing steady. I didn't count steps or confirm direction. I let the red thread guide my sense, not as a compass, but as a reminder that I was still me. After a while, I heard a voice from nowhere specific. "Don't go straight." I stopped. Ahead, the road blurred rapidly, erasing itself. One more step, and I might walk straight into a place without boundaries, where there was no concept of entering or leaving. I turned left. Immediately, the ground stabilized. Someone sat by the roadside, neither old nor young. He was carving something into stone, each stroke slow, even. "You're newly outside?" he asked without looking up. I nodded, then remembered. Nodding meant nothing here. "Yes," I said. He chuckled softly. "I know. Your marker's still trembling." He set down the knife. On the stone were meaningless grooves. No letters, no shapes, just marks. "Outside the register," he said, "no one gives directions for free. I won't guide you. I'll only tell you one rule." I listened. Nameless roads exist only for those who aren't seeking a destination. The more you want to go somewhere, the more the road will force you astray. I understood. Outside the register, strong intent is a signal. "So how do I walk?" I asked. He stood, brushing dust from his hands. "Walk like someone about to die. Don't expect arrival. Don't fear being lost." He glanced at the red thread on my wrist. "And don't bind it tighter. The thicker the anchor, the more hunters. Enjoy it." With that, he stepped back, not walking away, but simply no longer there. I continued on. This time I didn't think, didn't miss home, didn't imagine the future, didn't picture an end. I just walked. The road stabilized, not clearer, but less resistant. I began to encounter other things. A shadow sewing itself back together. A woman standing forever at a bend, waiting for a call that would never come. A faceless child playing hide-and-seek with its own shadow. No one asked who I was. No one remembered me. And for the first time, that didn't hurt. When the sky, if it could be called that, shifted to a very pale gray, I stopped. The red thread no longer trembled. It was warm, stable, not because I was safe, but because it had grown used to being unprotected. I sat by the road. Outside the register, there is no clear day or night. But I knew. A phase had ended. I was no longer a villager, no longer one who was recorded, not yet a hunter, nor one who was lost. I was something in between, a being with a marker, but no name on any road. And I understood clearly. From now on, every step I took would create the road itself. I was named for the first time, not by humans, not by hunters, but by the road I had just walked. When I stood and left that resting place, the ground behind me didn't close as it should have. It held my footprint, faint but intact. Outside the register, that wasn't normal. I took a few more steps. Then I heard a call, not from ahead, not from behind, but as if it came from the space between two steps. "Walker between." The voice held no emotion, neither male nor female. Like stone grinding against stone, slow, deep. I stopped. I didn't answer immediately, because I knew, outside the register, being named is a form of binding. You created a road, the voice continued, but did not claim it. You have a marker, but do not bind. You belong to neither record nor hunt. The ground beneath my feet trembled slightly. Not an earthquake, but an adjustment. A form gradually appeared ahead. Not a creature, not a person, just a structure, like a milestone standing in the void, uninscribed, covered only in dents, as if countless things had once passed by it. I understood. This wasn't an entity. It was an old rule, older than the heavenly register, older than the concept of being recorded. Before there was a register, the voice said, there were walkers between. They neither upheld order, nor destroyed it. They only passed through places that could not connect. I asked softly, what must I do? A long silence followed. Then the answer fell, heavy as stone, sinking into deep water. Not must, but must not deviate. In that instant, shattered images flooded my vision. Those whose names were sealed by the heavenly register. Those outside it, hunted until they dissolved. Roads erased because someone tried to possess them. All shared one thing. They chose a side. The walker between, the voice continued, stands with neither. When the register grows too heavy, you lighten it. When the outside grows too hungry, you block it. Do not save too much. Do not kill in place of others. The red thread warmed, but did not tighten. For the first time since I tied it, it didn't resist. In exchange, the voice lowered, you will have no home, no worship, no credit, no remembrance. When you vanish, no one will know why the world grew quieter. I closed my eyes. I thought of my father, my mother, the old village road. Then I thought of the Black River, the hunter, the nameless hungry things. I opened my eyes. I don't need to be remembered. The milestone sank slightly, as if in acceptance. Ahead, the ground opened into a narrow path, neither bright nor dark, but continuous. The voice spoke one last time. From now on, wherever something cannot connect, you will be pulled there. Not a command, but a consequence. The milestone dissolved. The road behind me finally closed. I stood for a long time, not in hesitation, but in understanding. From this moment on, I was no longer fleeing. I was a walker between, belonging neither to the register nor to the outside, but to the fractures both sides refused to face. I stepped onto the narrow path. I didn't know where it led, but I knew this clearly. Wherever it led, someone would need to stand in between. The fracture had no fixed shape. It wasn't like a crack in a wall, nor a tear in space. It was more like a hesitation, a place where the world couldn't decide whether to continue or stop. I sensed it before I saw it. The red thread turned cold. Not the cold of danger, but the cold of distorted gravity. I stepped out of the narrow path onto mixed ground, half familiar village road, half pale gray outside. They didn't merge, they overlapped, clashed, but never fused. Between them was the fracture. On one side, a middle-aged man knelt before a small altar, trembling as he held an extinguished incense stick. His face was ashen, sweat pouring down. On the other side, something waited. No clear shape, no clear mass, only one certainty. It was hungry. I understood instantly. The man had done something very small, not enough to be recorded, but enough to open a hole. He had called the wrong name of the dead, not on purpose. But outside the register, the smallest deviation is an invitation. the heavenly register began to react. I heard the sound of pages turning, very distant yet clear, not to record him, but to seal the area. If the register sealed it, the entire village would have its memory flattened for a short time. No one would die, but part of the people would no longer be whole. And if the outside reached first, I didn't need to think further. I stepped into the fracture. Instantly, two forces tore at me. One tried to pull me back into the register, to name me, locate me, and end this with a single line of record. The other tried to drag me fully outside, to turn me into bait so the fracture could close itself. I chose neither. I stood in between. The red thread tightened. For the first time since I tied it, it wanted to break. I spoke, not to anyone in particular. Error is not a crime. My voice didn't echo, but the fracture hesitated. I turned to the man. "Call again," I said. He looked up in panic. I can't remember his name clearly anymore." I nodded. "Then don't call a name. Call by relationship." I placed my hand on the ground, not pressing, not drawing talismans, just confirming presence. "Call him my son." The man shook violently, but he obeyed. The moment the words left his mouth, the fracture contracted. The hungry thing outside let out a low hiss, not in anger, but in rejection of an invalid meal. The page-turning stopped. No new record, no area seal. The fracture closed, but did not vanish entirely. It left a faint scar. The man collapsed, sobbing, not from fear, but from remembering correctly. I stepped back. My legs felt heavy, not from exhaustion, but from consequence. The red thread frayed a single filament, not broken, but weakened. The old rule's voice echoed faintly. "Your first time. You chose correctly, but fractures will remember you." I understood. From now on, any place where I had stood in between would have the potential to call me back. No ritual, no plea, just a deviation large enough between record and hunger. I left before the village fully stabilized, because I knew a walker between must not stay too long. Staying creates a new anchor, and somewhere far away, something had begun to remember how I intervened. Not the heavenly register, but something that had never been allowed to learn the rules.